Cyberpunk, proto synthwave, proto electro disco, proto ITALO disco. That these days is sort of turning into a hybrid of punk rock. Their sounds are getting stranger and stranger. They already did sound like breakdancing. It's like they did a whole parody, I guess, from what I've read, of science fiction stuff. And like they were disco, but a lot of the dance moves were breakdancing moves, and they carried ghetto blasters around and that, and some of it was synth punk and synth pop, but they never called it that. But nowadays, people are making hybrids of it, changing the style a bit, making a different style. Because the 21st century, a digital boy, a 6'6" Spudnik, predicted all this kind of stuff. Where all music genres are changing their style from what they used to be, and there's something a little bit different. Just a second, I gotta turn on the lights here so you can see. And it's definitely not Bee Gees style disco. It's more boy meets girl type disco. And they're talking about their girlfriends, or their girlfriend, or their love of their life, with a weird twist to it, like a ribbit, or sample sound. I think it's called vaporwave. I'm not sure if it's vaporwave or something. I could be wrong. It might not be called vaporwave. It's voicoid or whatever, you know, that thing that you put it up to your mouth and you talk into it, and you use it on synth too. A voice coiter, and that is like and la 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 la, kind of operatic, because they're Italian, and they do like an opera intro, and then it goes all weird with it. Yeah, and that's where the breakdancers got their breakbeats from, I guess. The old funk records and old Italo disco records. I would say that they're kind of like an electro disco trance, funk punk, or whatever. Like they dress hip hop, but and somewhat disco and space mutant-ish. The Creatures. There's a movie called Jocks. I guess it just means jocks means actually disc jockeys or whatever. But I watched that movie and it reminded me of like a mild version of Liquid Sky. And I noticed some of the people in it, I think, were in Liquid Sky. I think Liquid Sky is also like got Italian actors in it, but it was filmed in New York or L.A. And their music's even lower fi than mine has ever been. The music's basically like sounds like toy keyboards or whatever. It's really like tinny sounds, like even more lo-fi than the Terminator movie or Blade Runner, the Blade Runner soundtrack, or even Chrome. More like the band Suicide with Alan Vega and Martin Rev, but even more lo-fi than them even. So it's hard to explain, like, but I could see an Italian disco going like kind of like a punk funk, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, or they already kind of did. Fine Young Cannibals apparently was Italo disco. So was Phil Collins. So was Devo. Well, Devo was produced by Italo Disco Records. It's actually a record label, but it's turning into like a genre of music because everyone thinks that it's a genre of music, but it actually isn't. I guess it originally was a record label, but I don't know much about it. I'm French and Italian, but I never really. Well, most of the bands I listen to, the synth pop bands, I thought were gothic. Well, a lot of them were actually disco bands, but they had like a more different tempo. More, I guess they were sampling stuff from Liquid and the ESGs, Emerald, Sapphires, and Gold. They're like, I think they're indigenous. I think two of them are indigenous and two of them are African American. But it's basically drum and bass and rhyming. A lot of hip-hop producers have sampled their drum and bass beats for their hip-hop backdrop. And, what was I going to say? Well, yeah, that band, The Creatures, they do all these, like it's like operatic a bit. It's a bit like a symphony. It's almost like Doctor Who, like you know, with the droid, whatever they were called. Those things, it looks like they have a tea kettle on their head, and they walk around. We are not human. And those tripids or trepids or those robots that look like the Pac-Man ghost, but without the bottom, like that, crisscross, with like these long cannons, like they're like a tank or something. Like, you cannot come in here. We are the druids. You must be exterminated. Exterminated. You must be exterminated. The creatures, like, I don't even know, did they have a female singer, or is it a guy that is a female voice? Most of the bands, they sound like they have a female voice. But I noticed, like, it's supposed to be disco, but all the recordings are lo-fi, like it's being taped off of a cheap tape recorder like I do, but I don't know how to get that tempo where it doesn't sound all noisy. I don't want to get a noise complaint. That's why I need to get the equipment today, but there's lockdown, so I got to go to a dollar store, try to get some cables, headphones. I have a really small patch cord jack on my microphone that came with my camera, so I need to get a small to big so I can plug it into things and that, so I can do my vocals and that, because like putting a speaker in the microphone thing, it just feedbacks and that, and I'm not very good at that kind. I want to like actually cut a really smooth track, but you need a sampler, because I can sample like all my drum beats and that, and just play them back, and stupid lockdown, and I just, all these people would like give me a hard time making my noise and that outside you can hear them, and I just said, why don't you go and do a hobby? Like, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. Like, anytime any pandemic or wars went on, I just don't pay attention and do my skateboarding and my music. You know, what's the point? Because most of that stuff's a joke. Like, Agenda 21's a joke. It's all invented to divide us because we were waking up. But it's the wrong time to do it, because it's already been predicted, and the smart people, the aware people know that all this pandemic stuff and that was predicted in the dystopian films like Heartbeats and Blade Runner and Class of Nukem High, Class of 1984, Class of 1999. The list goes on. Robot Monster. Bad Manners even was kind of a dystopian film about orphan kids, like Oliver Twist, but they smoke and drink and break out of the orphanage to rescue their friend that got orphaned off. And then there's the Zoo Gang from 1985. There's the Breakfast Club that's kind of like dystopian. And then Ready Player One. It's a Steven Spielberg film. That's dystopian. And Cyber City. It's really weird, because that thing has not worked, seriously, literally has not worked for 2 years straight. That's just my setup. For 2 years straight, my copy of Cyber City, the final series or final cut or something like that, never worked. If I could depend on it, I wiped it down, everything, and it would not play. And yesterday, I just said, Buddha, I watched it, I said, Buddha, I really want this to work, could you please bless it? And every time I pray to him, everything I want done happens. As long as it's positive and not negative, and as long as it's trying to teach somebody something. But if it's a corrupt or sacrilegious or whatever, it doesn't work. I try to pray to God or Jesus, and nothing happens. So I think that Buddha is Jesus and God. I think he's all one person. Or the two of them, Jesus and God. I think that I looked in a book, a religious book, and it said that they studied Shaolin and Tai Chi and Hinduism and that, and mixed it with the Christianity stuff. I tried to tell that to a Christian person. They got mad at me, and they took me to a speaking. And the guy, most of the time, the whole speaking, the guy was talking about Buddha and Tai Chi and Feng Shui and how to love each other and not treat each other bad, and that just to live your life and things will go good. And then she said, no, he didn't. And I'm like, I showed her in the book that it talks about Buddha, and she's like, oh, no, what's that book doing here? It's like, denies it totally. Like, look, why is my life going different than theirs, and why do they always suffer? I never suffer. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, because I'm not. I'm just doing my thing, and a lot of people, they're criticizing me because they're afraid of the 80s. Because back in the 80s, there was a lot of one-hit wonders that dressed flamboyant and flashy, that were heterosexual, but people thought they were weirdos and that, so they didn't take the music seriously and thought that it was just a bunch of bullshit, and just pushed it aside and didn't give it any more of a listen. And nowadays, like ITALO disco, like everyone's doing that. It's not even disco. It's like a hybrid synthwave, synth punk, electro punk, electro disco, cosmic disco. All that stuff is like not BG stuff. That's tough stuff. That's boy meets girl, like tough guy, like gang movie music. You know, like when you watch a gang movie, there's like the Warriors. Warriors come out and play. Like that movie. Like the cheesy music that they play in the background. They usually hear that cheesy music in BMX movies too. Because like it is a type of disco, but it's a type of disco that wasn't really disco. It was too weird to be disco. It was more like punk. Like if punk rockers decided to put like a 4/4 time signature and a trance and a dub and reggae, like disco is really reggae and dub and soul and funk, and it originated from Jamaica because they were the guys that originated the mixing,